What's good, YouTube? Okay, so today's video is probably my most asked topic that I get from you guys. Hopefully this will address y'all's questions because I feel like I get this question literally every day and I feel bad because I haven't been able to really answer it. But I finally done my research. I finally gone and looked up my scores, and I'm gonna be talking about my scores that I had when I applied into UT and what class rank, SAT score, and ACT score that I think you guys need in order to probably get into UT. Priority deadline was November 1st. The actual deadline to apply to UT is December 1st. So if you're a senior and you're applying this year, tell me down below. I'm really interested to see who's all applying and what other schools you're applying to too. That being said, make sure you guys, if you guys are watching this video and you guys are planning to apply or you're not sure if you want to apply, don't let this video make you feel like you guys can't get into UT if you don't have certain scores. I highly encourage, like, no matter what your scores are, just to try and apply because you never know. As I'm sure you guys know if you guys watch my videos, I think it's really important to get a good, feel for UT that's not really just like the way UT tries to sell it to you, because obviously UT is going to try to sell you the best picture that they can. If you guys plan to visit UT's campus at all, make sure to download this app called Bluutour before you come and visit. It basically is just an app that allows you to listen to tours through your phone that are actually recorded by students. So I could go on Bluutour and record a tour of UT myself, and you guys could actually buy it and listen to it and do a tour that way instead of doing a normal school whatever tour. You can actually filter it by major, by interest, whatever. You can find a student who's just like you who can actually give you a tour of UT's campus through the app. It's so dope. I think it's so much better than just getting a tour through UT. So make sure to go check it out. I'll leave a link down in the bio. So if you guys do plan to come and tour UT, make sure to download the app before you come. It's a really dope app. I actually think I'm going to be recording a tour myself soon, so stay tuned for that. Anyways, jumping into the video, I'm just going to give you guys a general breakdown of what my scores were when I applied to UT. Back when I applied to UT, the SAT was completely different than the way it is now. The max score you could get was a 2400. So when I took it the second time, I think I got an 1860. So that's the score I had when I applied to UT. I had an 1860 for the SAT, and then for the ACT, I think I got a 29. And that one I'm not 100% sure on because I actually did not use my ACT score when applying because I didn't want them to use both. I just took whichever one I thought was better. So I think that because my SAT was a little bit more above average, I used that one instead of using the ACT because it's like you don't need to use both. My GPA in high school, my high school was a little bit different. They didn't use a 4.0 system. So my GPA in high school was a 94 out of a 100. And then my class rank was a 120 something, around 120 out of around 800 something people. So I remember my rank was around 14%. So keep in mind that my scores were okay because my scores actually did not get me into UT. If you've seen my other videos, then you know my scores actually got me into the PACE program. So it's really similar to the CAP program, which I'll explain later in the video. But it's different in that you actually do get to live on UT's campus. You get to call yourself a UT student, all those things. So technically I was admitted into UT my first year, but I was not a full-time UT student until my second year. So if you are looking at your scores now wondering, okay, what does that mean for me? Just know that if you're in the top 6% of your class, then I'm sure you know this, that you are automatically accepted into UT. And I think that goes for all Texas public schools. If you're in the top 10% of your high school, then I personally think that you have a really good chance. Another thing to keep in mind is before I actually made this video, I was doing a little bit of research and I found out that you can actually pull your admissions file. I talked to someone who got their admissions file pulled from UT, and the main things that UT actually takes into account when they're looking at your application is of course, your class rank and your GPA, your SAT and ACT scores. But then also on top of those things, UT will also score you based on your competitiveness of your high school. So basically, like me being the top 14% of my class isn't that great, but because my high school is pretty competitive, it makes it look a little bit better. If you've been taking AP classes, they also take that into account too, so keep that in mind. They look at a lot of these factors that kind of determine for someone who's in your community, someone that's in your class, that's in your race and all that stuff, whether or not that you're in a place that you should be, which is important to keep in mind because I get a lot of messages from you guys who maybe talk about that you don't come from the best You don't come from a family that can afford SAT tutors, or you don't come from a family that can afford even for you to go to that grade of a high school. All those things. Keep in mind that UT does look at that stuff. And of course, UT also takes into account extracurriculars, the fact that you've made an attempt to get involved in high school stuff, your leadership roles. All those things are actually scored into your application in some kind of algorithm before they even review your application like person to person. Another thing that UT looks at is your SAT score, obviously. So the way the new SAT score is formatted is different than the way it used to be. So the 25th percentile SAT score for the national average is 1160. So that basically means that if you score below an 1160 on the SAT score, then you are scoring below average on SAT. And 1390 is the 75th percentile. So that basically means that if you score 1390 and above, then you are above average than the national average of SAT scores. So UT has not said this, but what is believed is that if you're between 1160 and 1390, then you have a chance. If you're below 1160, I would highly encourage you to take the SAT again, or to use your ACT score. That being said, if you can, then I would only include your SAT score if you have somewhere around 1390. You know, obviously that's not like the hard limit, but I would say if you're in that area or above, I would definitely suggest just use your SAT score and of course your GPA when you apply. So I looked it up, and the national average for the ACT is a 29. So if you score again below a 29, then you are below average for ACT. If you score above a 29, then you are above average. So I would definitely say again, if you are above a 29 on your ACT, use that on your application for UT. If you are below it, then I would personally go for either a higher score, or I would just use your SAT score if that's higher. Basically, I would just look at your SAT and your ACT score, and if your SAT is above 1390 or around it, and if your ACT is around 29 or above that, if one of them does not meet those marks, then I would just use one or the other, if that makes sense. So hopefully I'm explaining this well. I feel like it's really confusing. If you haven't already taken both tests, I definitely suggest that you do, because they're kind of different. They work differently. Some people perform a lot better on the ACT, and some people perform a lot better on the SAT. So another thing, guys, also to keep in mind is that just because you guys have gotten into UT does not mean that you'll get into your desired major. UT allows you to pick, I think, your first choice and your second choice major when you apply. And if you guys don't get into your first choice major and you don't get into your second, then they will place you in something else. If UT doesn't feel like your scores are good enough, then you guys could also get offered the CAP program, which I've also explained in my other video. But basically, it's just a way that UT will accept you into the school after your first year, but you have to go to another UT school first for 1 year. I have tons of friends who have done the CAP program. I highly recommend it if you guys end up getting offered it. It's kind of a complex system, so I'm not going to go over the exact details of it, but basically, if you're in the top 25% of your class, you will probably get offered CAP. If you're not in the top 25% of your class, then they're looking at certain SAT scores and ACT scores, and it depends on the UT system school. So UTSA and UT Tyler and UT Arlington all have different requirements. Hopefully this helps. I know it sounds really confusing. It's a lot of information just being blurted at you, but I will link a lot of these resources down in the link below. I think this information is really easily like digested when you actually look at it yourself rather than me just telling it to you. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, guys, stay tuned for some more videos coming out soon. And let me know if you guys have any questions in the comments down below. I'll see you guys in the next video.